So, hello everyone, welcome to another REGARTIS webinar, this time on Turkish Reach in 2026. So the KKDIK framework is up and running, and we are here to talk all about it with our experts, Dusan Basic. Hi Dusan. And
Hi, Stano.
And Inessa Kiristayeva. Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
This webinar is a part of a series which will lead up eventually to the Prague Chemicals Management Cruise, which we are holding in April of this year in Prague. Registrations are open. If you're still unaware or unregistered, feel free to check out the website, which is pcmc2026.com. I'll leave a link to it later in the chat. And KKDIK will for sure be a big part of the discussions at this conference. Now, quickly, I would like to do an overview of this webinar. So we'll first do the introduction and setup, which is already happening now, sort of tautology here. Then we will spend approximately 30 minutes on expert talks by both Dusan and Inessa. And afterwards, we'll lean into the Q&A discussion, which we usually do at these webinars. So during the Q&A, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. We should be able to turn on your microphone or let you turn on your microphone and chat together if you'd prefer to talk live, that is, or you can put your questions into the Q&A interface. All questions which you entered into registrations, or we already listed in the presentation, so they will show up during the discussion later. If you would like to expand on them or put new ones, please use the Q&A, as chat might not be reliable. Sometimes it's hard to navigate it when multiple people are chatting. And of course, after the webinar is done, we will share the recording via our YouTube channel. You might already know that our YouTube hosts all our free webinars, which we had in the past year and a half, including the Reach Revision Roundtable or our endocrine disruption or hazard classification series. And of course, you will also receive the presentation slides. So whatever you're seeing now, you will have in a PDF format afterwards as well. So this is the point where I switch to Dusan, give Dusan the mic, and I really hope that you will all have a great time and bring something new from the webinar. Dusan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stano. I hope that today you will enjoy our webinar and get to know factor 2. Although if you know EU Reach, you will see that you will catch up with Turkey KKDIK very easy. First of all, we will speak about similarities. No, correction. First of all, we will speak why it would be interested for you to place the products on the Turkey market, and we have some slides on our screen where you can see that basically Turkey represents a huge and growing chemical market. That area in red has the equal population of the area in blue, so you can see graphically how big Turkey market it is and why it can be interesting for you to place your products there. So we are here today to speak about KKD Reach, which went into effect on December 23rd, 2017. On 2023, we have the postponement of the deadlines. And lastly, the last year, we had the introduction of procedures and principles, which confirmed some interpretation and bring some novelties. About which my dear colleague Inessa will speak more later on. The competent authority is the Turkish Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change, while below you can also find the link of the Chemical Help Desk in Turkey. So basically, the first similarity with EU REACH is that this is the market access regulation. Whoever manufacture or import into Turkey substance in quantity 1 ton or above have to make the pre-registration and then eventually registration, which is the basic requirement of the EU REACH principle: no data, no market. Which substances are in the scope of the KKDIK. The scope is the same as under the EU REACH. Basically, we have substances that are not within the scope of KKDIK. We have substances that are exempted from the registration and substances that are already considered registered. You can see on my screen that those are all the same substance as within the EU REACH. Which companies are duty holders. Again, this would be importer and manufacturer in Turkey, but also companies outside of Turkey can appoint the Turkey-based company as their only representative. Sounds familiar. Regarding the tonnage bands, we have 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to 1000, and 1000 and above. Again, more volume, more data. And same as in the EU REACH, and basically above 10 tons for certain substance, you have to have a chemical safety report. Basically, although there is the, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Generation of new data, that is new studies, is not expected to be needed under the KKDIK REACH because registrant will in most cases use data from the already generated under the EU REACH. However, you do need to get legitimate access to the data. That is, you have to purchase the letter of access. Letter of access will be needed not only for the full registration, but if you have a chance to purchase the letter of access for the temporary registration, do that. The authority will also you can also submit use the non-testing methods such as the read across, in silico method, and data waivers where applicable. Registration types are the same as in the EU REACH, so we will have the full substance registration and intermediate registrations, and of course all registrations should come below joint submission, where the joint submission of the core registration data set is required, while the opt-out is possible. So you can see there are a lot of elements of the EU REACH implemented under the KKDIK, and whoever is familiar with the EU REACH will have a good knowledge base for the KKDIK as well. Rules and duties: lead registrant is there to lead the CF activity. He has to work on the substance identity, to collect and compile required data for the registration, to prepare the chemical safety report, to share and maintain the letter of access, to manage the joint registration, and of course record keeping and to communicate with authorities and with co-registrant. Co-registrant activities and the duties will be again familiar. It will be the same as under the EU REACH. So basically, co-registrant will have to cooperate in the pre-safe, agree on substance identity, share available data, purchase the letter of access, maintain the co-registration up to date, and of course deal with the record keeping and communication with the authority where needed. Now, side-by-side comparison, you can see that the similarities and differences between the EU REACH and Turkey KKDIK. So we can see that pre-registration is no longer possible under the EU REACH, while in Turkey this is the main method of the placing the substance on the market. Inquiry in the EU REACH, yes, you need to submit inquiry before the registration, while in Turkey, submitting the inquiry will be possible only after the last registration deadline, that is from the 2030 and later on. Registrations, yes, all substances above 1 ton. Chemical safety report, yes, the Turkey reach also envisage authorization restriction only representative. However, big differences are in red below. That is that safety data sheet will need certification of the chemical assessment expert, so-called KDU. So this is the certified experts in Turkey, which can review and compile the SDS and also submit the registration dossier, chemical safety report, etc., within their national chemical registration system called KKS. So basically, every SDS need to have the certification of the chemical assessment expert. Dossier can only be submitted by the chemical assessment expert. And finally, the procedures also introduce temporary registration, which is something that we do not have under the EU reach. Regarding the SDSs in Turkey, well, as of 1st of January 2024, all safety data sheet must be fully compliant with the requirements of the Annex 2 of the KKDIK regulation. Just a second. I think you can see my screen now. So this is Annex 1 and this is Annex 2. Basically, you can see in the legal text, you will find the SDS format. And just a second. There you will find familiar 16 section SDS, which must be written in the Turkish and, like we said, prepared by the chemical assessment expert. In addition to the national specific information, which we use to for the EU SDSs as well, so we will have the national specific information in the section 1.4, 8, and 15. Substances will also need to have the registration number in section 1.1, also in section 3, and the mixtures will also have to have pre-registration, that is registration number in section 3, and section 16 must include the KDU information in the section 16. Do not use for the section 8, you should also use the national specific occupational exposure limits, basically, which you can also find in our presentation. You can see here, but this is something that we also use to with the EU REACH SDS. You will have to use the national values. Okay, finally, every SDS must be submitted in the so-called SDS portal of the ministry. Which submission portal it will be used for the pre-registration, registration, later on authorization? It will be chemical registration system. This is basically this online platform integrates the functionalities of the REACH IT, Euclid, and the Chezor Tour, and it will work online only. And like we said, the access to the KKS can only have the chemical assessment expert.
Thank you, Dusan. We will be taking over in our headquarters from Prague again. I will use this space to quickly answer one question in chat, which just popped up by Albert. Yes, the copy of presentations and the recording will be shared via mail afterwards. So this is the most frequently asked question. Every webinar has one, and if it hasn't, it's not a real webinar. So Inessa, it is your time to shine now.
Thank you, S.r.o. Thank you. Hello again, everyone. It's a big pleasure to be here and to open this new year with a webinar on Turkish KKDIK. And it's an interesting question. Why did we start with Turkey? Because we are offering different services, but Turkey now is a more exciting, let's say, legislation field, because in August 2025, there was new procedures and principles for KKDIK, which change a lot from the 2017 when the KKDIK was just implemented. So in August 2025, the Turkish Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change formally approved the procedures and principles for the implementation of KKDIK. This approval gives the document full legal force and makes it binding for both enforcement and inspections. And this is the best friends of any consultant: deadlines, inspections, and enforcement. So we want you to be prepared for all of this. So this amendment doesn't really change the substance of KKDIK, but it does add structure to the process and introduce clear procedural steps, fix deadlines, and defined responsibilities. For companies, that means predictability, but also lacks flexibility. But at the high level, the registration pathway now follows a clear sequence: pre-registration, lead registrant determination, temporary registration, and full registration. Excuse me. So the key deadlines now are: pre-registration was finished 31st October 2025. Lead registrant determination was supposed to finish end of December 2025. Temporary registration submitted by lead registrant should be done by the end of March 2026, and the temporary registration for co-registrants finished by 30th September 2026. And then full registration deadlines depend on the tonnage and the hazard profile, and ranging from 2026 to 2030, which means that we are short of time and clock is ticking. So we need to find out how we should proceed and to get to the target compliance for Turkish REACH. So pre-registration. You must be already know this procedure from previous years of KKDIK, but of course we need to point some features which are relevant for KKDIK. So it was supposed to be ended in October 31st, 2025. And although this possibility is still there, so the window in KKS is still open for pre-registration, also because for substances which are not yet on the Turkish market, it is possibility to submit late pre-registration. So pre-registration is still possible to submit. For substances which already on the market, the deadline was in October, but don't worry about it too much. You still can do that. Pre-registration also triggers participation in the pre-CIF, where companies must agree on the substance identity, designate the lead registrant, and coordinate the joint registration strategy. Also, this is the place in KKS system where you can see whether the lead registrant was determined, was elected, and what is the status of the lead registrant dossier. Was it submitted or not yet? Then who is a lead registrant? As Dusan mentioned, lead registrant have the same role as in European REACH, but it's a critical milestone for KKDIK, because that was actually the challenging part why the KKDIK was not implemented in a full speed. So for substances already on the market before 12 August 2025, the lead registrant should have been determined by 31st December. In practice, this process is still ongoing for many substances, which of course creates uncertainties, and we got a lot of questions from our today's participants about the election of lead registrant, and we will refer to them later after the presentation. For substances entering the Turkish market after that date, the rule is clear. Lead registrant must be selected within 6 months after the placing of the substance on the market. But if no company volunteers, then the Turkish ministry may be more proactive, and together with the TOBB, this is the Union of Chambers on Commodity Exchange of Turkey, will appoint a lead registrant based on some predefined priority criteria. This mechanism exists and prevents stalemates. Every substance must ultimately have a responsible lead registrant, and this is new in principles and procedures, how to force lead registrants to be elected. So we go to temporary registration. What is it about? Temporary registration is one of the most important changes which was introduced by this amendment. It applies to all tonnage bands for both lead registrants and co-registrants. There are no exemptions. Temporary registration allows company to continue placing substances on the market while preparing the full registration dossiers. However, it is not a very light obligation. The submission made via new field in KKS, and once completed, it will the registration number, which will start with the letter J, will be assigned. Codes are possible to use for the temporary registration, both for lead registrant and for co-registrants. This is approved by ministry already, of course, where it is possible. Temporary registration is accompanied with a registration fee, and this should be paid only one time. The full registration will be without registration fee after that, which brings us to the very important conclusion that temporary registration is the first obligatory step to the full registration. So in case you have obligation to submit temporary registration, you don't have the choice to submit temporary or full registration. You need to go through the route of first temporary registration and then full registration as update of the temporary registration. What are the data requirements for the temporary registration? So first, of course, it's substance identity, composition, and analytics. So you will need your analytical protocols to submit within the temporary registration. Then temporary registration will have some elements of the joint registrations from Europe, like classification and labeling, physical chemical data on the substance, safe use guidance, and you have to provide information on manufacture, use, exposure, and uses advised against. So it's not full dossier, but it's more than formality, I would say like this. So you need to be ready for that. So how to act? First of all, once your substance is pre-registered and you know what is the status of the lead registrant. The first scenario, the lead registrant completed the temporary registration until March 31st, 2026. So you as the co-registrant need to submit temporary registration by the 30th September 2026 and then go to full registration according to the tonnage band and the hazardous profile of your substance. Another scenario, when you have lead registrant for your substance and this lead registrant already submitted the full registration. There are some cases like this, like for ethylene, for example. So full registration by lead registrant is submitted by the end of March. So you don't have the obligation to submit the temporary registration, but then you just need to fulfill the full registration deadlines. Full registration data requirements are very similar to the European REACH, and it includes everything which is required on the phase of temporary registration, plus toxicological information, ecotoxicological information, PBT assessment, chemical safety assessment, chemical safety report, You need to provide testing proposals where data gaps exist. So it's a full pile and big list of data that you need to provide, of course, based on the tonnage range of your substance. Animal testing should be avoided, the same as in Europe, whenever possible, and QSAR and alternative methods are encouraged to be used. Data requirements and cost sharing depend on tonnage, and dossiers are submitted via KKS in the Euclid-like format, but everything is submitted like temporary registration and full registration. Everything should be submitted in the Turkish language. Very interesting situation with a letter of access, because in the KKDIK joint submission registration, letter of access consists of two parts. First part is the data owner component, and then administrative component. So in practice, if you purchase in the letter of access, you need to purchase it from the mostly European data owner, and then from the Turkish lead registrant who is fulfilling the administrative role. So it will be two different contracts. Of course, very interesting question, what are the fees for registration after European fees was increased in the end of last year? The fees of KKDIK looks very attractive, and they are using the same principle. So individual submission is more expensive than joint submission. The SMEs have reduction, but the biggest fee is roughly 2,000 euros. So for the biggest tonnage band. And I want to repeat that you pay it one time. Once you pay it for temporary registration, you don't have to pay it for the full registration. I would like to emphasize that, of course, we're speaking today about KKDIK because of the deadlines which are coming in 2026, but the whole chemical regulation does not consist only from KKDIK. It's very similar to Europe, and Turkey is also part of the custom European zone, so they are mirroring the regulation, and KKDIK and SEA as the CLP, let's say Turkish CLP, they are the core chemical regulations. But also there are regulations which have sectoral regulations like cosmetic, biocides, fertilizers, and regulations on restrictions of chemical substances like toys, food contact materials, electrical devices. And of course, you have the regulations which applies to all products like transport regulation or certification. So by saying that, we also got some questions about different types of the chemical products. Each of them need a separate assessment. The only important message here that fulfilling KKDIK requirements might be not enough to place your product on the Turkish market, because also this system is changing and it's amending, as I mentioned, mirroring the European developments. And like in Europe, we used to like 1-2 competent authorities, and there in Turkey we have quite a few ministries and competent authorities who are taking care of the compliance. So today we are really focusing on the practical understanding of the KKDIK, whether you will use our services or not use our services. I'm sure after today's webinar, you will gain the knowledge and you'll know what are the steps to take for you to be compliant on the Turkish market. So key messages: for if not yet, nominate your only representative in Turkey. Make sure that it's reliable, legal or physical entity or physical person. If not yet, pre-register your substance as soon as possible. That will give you a possibility to start your export already in Turkey. Then once you pre-register your substance, you can see the status of the lead registrant nomination. If no lead registrant nominated, it is recommended to submit inquiry to the ministry and to ask for the permission to have individual temporary registration, because we are now in the end of January till the end of March. It's not a lot of time, so you can go individually with a temporary registration, and this will give you confidence that your product will be compliant. In case the lead registrant is nominated, so confirm what is the status. If he submitted full registration, you have your time till your deadline, registration deadline, the full registration deadline. If he submit temporary registration, go for temporary registration before the end of September. And very important, ensure that you have required analytical test reports available, because this will be needed on the stage of the temporary registration. And this is about it that I wanted to share. I hope it was interesting. S.r.o. Shine.
Oh, it's my time to shine. Okay, I actually isn't. I'm just the mediator here. So thank you, Inessa, for an interesting presentation. Thank you also to Dusan. And we will now move to the second part of the webinar, or technically a third one. And this is the questions and answers. So just let me quickly reiterate how will the Q&A work. By default, people attending the webinar have their mics turned off, but if you would like to speak to us, to ask questions live, feel free to raise your hand, and I will give you the opportunity to unmute yourself. I hope my... can you please let us know in chat if you can hear us, because our second PC froze, so I'm not sure if everything is okay. Yes, we can. Perfect. Thank you very much. That was very prompt. All right, so if you'd like to speak to us live, feel free to raise your hand. We will allow you to unmute your microphone. We have multiple questions in the Q&A. I already saw Dusan answer a few, and we have around 20 questions from registrations and from your inputs lined up. So if we don't answer a question, do not fret. You can still reach out to us via the contact form on our website, or by responding to the emails received regarding this webinar, or by any other form you might prefer. So let's do the discussion.
Q&A.
Okay. First one, I believe is by Little Sava, who asked, "What should I, as an EU supplier, do to export to Turkey under KKDIK?" Inessa?
Okay. As EU supplier, you need to decide first whether you want your product to be compliant and you will be the owner of this compliance, or you will rely on the compliance of your customers in Turkey. Because the same rule applies: one substance, one registration in the supply chain. Once you decide that you want to be the ruler of your registration in KKDIK, you have to nominate the only representative in Turkey, make a contract with them, and then pre-register, temporary register, full register your substance. In case your importer will take this responsibility, then it's less investment for you, of course, but it will be less freedom and less choice for you as well, because then you will be binded to this customer in Turkey, and that works exactly the same as in Europe. I don't know, Dusan, want to add something?
Well, yes, just like under the EU REACH, this is the Turkey national legislation. So if your company outside of Turkey, no one can force you to follow their national law. However, if you want to relieve the importer of the obligation and to encourage the placement of your products on the market, you will most likely appoint the only representative who will take all the responsibilities of the Turkey importer company on themselves and make the importer life easy.
Okay, thank you. Should you have any follow-up, feel free to use the chat or interact with us further. I mean, you know the gist. No. What's up? There you go. Thomas asked, what happens if no lead registrant exists? Now, this is a question which permeated multiple questions, and I believe in the presentations. So what do we do if no lead registrant is there?
Okay. Dusan, want to take this?
Yes. So basically, I see several questions in the Q&A that goes around these same questions. So basically, I will try to simplify. Will you use the temporary registration or not will depend on the lead registrant. So let's say you will have the best case scenario is that the lead registrant is appointed and he already submitted or will submit full registration until the end of the March this year. In that case, your pre-registration will be enough to that your products are compliant with the Turkey national law, and you can continue to place your products on the Turkey market with pre-registration only. However, if the lead registrant decides that he will not have all the information for the full registration, in that case, he will most likely submit temporary registration by the end of the March. And in that case, you have to submit your joint temporary registration in September, by the September this year, to stay on the market. So pre-registration will not be enough. However, if the lead registrant do not exist, or for whatever reason you cannot purchase the letter of access, or you do not want to purchase the letter of access, you think it's pricey, etc., you can still submit individual temporary registration by the March this year, and in that way you can continue to place products within the Turkey market. So basically, we have three different scenarios. Best case scenario, there is a lead and he will submit full registration. In that case, you will need pre-registration and to observe the registration deadline, 2026, 2028, and 2030. Let's say the middle scenario is that lead registrant will submit temporary registration, and the worst case scenario, there is no lead, he do not want to sell you the letter of access. In that case, you will need to submit your own temporary registration to keep the Turkish market after the March.
What to do? Let's move on. Thank you, Dusan. Or do you want to add anything, Inessa?
I see in the chat a question about temporary individual registration and later, and maybe we can go to it later, but adjust it. So if you submit your temporary individual registration, so there is no lead registrant and you go your individual way, and later your sales to Turkey decrease, and is it possible to cease? It is interesting and very important thing. Pre-registration or temporary registration does not apply any obligations on you to follow it with a full registration. So you have the possibility to stop this process on the moment when you are not interested in it. And all talks, I just wanted to maybe emphasize that we are speaking now about the products which are placed on the Turkish market, and the companies want to allow that products be uninterrupted. Yeah, so like this, that's why we are so precise about deadlines, what to do now to be on the safe side, not to interrupt your exports. But in case your exports and your products are not going to Turkey, it's okay. You don't have to like worry and then have to do something now. And in case you will miss it, you know, so like we are speaking now with the companies who are really exporting products or planning to export. They have these plans. No, I don't know if I add to this question, but that was an interesting question. So I pick it up.
Okay. Let's move back a little.
Yes.
I'll backtrack. Sorry.
Maybe we can cover the next question. For temporary registration, is it necessary to have the letter of access? Yes. If you want to be part of the joint temporary registration, that is the scenario when the lead registrant submit temporary registration in March, and you will have to submit your joint temporary registration by September. You will need to purchase the letter of access. However, you still have the option to generate your own data and submit individual registration by March. Just a point, in the EU REACH and even under the UK REACH, we have 12 years rule, which means that the results, the studies submitted in the course of the registration older than 12 years can be used freely. Of course, they are usually accompanied with a administrative fee, but this is a pocket money. This cannot be applicable in Turkey. So if the study is submitted 12 years ago under the EU REACH, it doesn't mean anything under the Turkey, and you still need to purchase this data. Do not be surprised. I mean, in that case scenario, the lead registrant will be able to sell you the whole letter of access, but there is also the cases where the lead registrant will not have the sub-license, right? In that case, the Turkey lead registrant will be able to sell you only the administrative part of the letter of access, while the right to use the results, the data, must come from the data owner, which can be in the EU or anywhere around the world. So even though the letter of access can be consist of two parts.
Thank you, Dusan. I'll try to keep up with jumping around questions. So sorry if maybe the screen is messy. It usually should catch up in like 10 seconds before I find the correct slide. For now, I would just like to remind everyone that you can raise your hand if you would like to talk live. And before anyone decides, let's move to Elena's questions and differences between KKDIK compliant and EU REACH compliant safety data sheets.
Well, the Turkish SDS, of course, is their national SDS, so obviously it has to be in the Turkish language. And the biggest difference is that compliant SDS has to be certified by the chemical assessment expert. So in the section 16, you will have the, let's say, signature or the stamp of the chemical assessment expert. It follows the SDS, still follows well-known 16 section format, but it doesn't keep up with all the changes that are going on with the EU SDS. So, for instance, we will not have the sections 11.2 or 12.7. So definitely consult the legal text in Annex 2 of the KKDIK to check your SDS. And of course, like we said in the presentations, it is mandatory for substance to have the pre-registration, that is registration number in the section 1.1.
Dusan, thank you. If you need to further consult the presentation, already covered the differences, but let's move on now to Öznur, who asked, what has really changed under KKDIK since 2017? Inessa?
Okay, interesting question. I think we covered it, both Dusan and me in the presentation, but in 2017, the KKDIK was introduced. After that, the deadlines was postponed 2 times. And the biggest change, I think, that was this procedures and principles, which came into force in August 2025, which structured and motivate companies, registrants to move forward with registration. And I think also we can mention here that since 2017, Ministry and the stakeholders of Turkish companies and non-Turkish companies start to work much closer with each other and generate the way how to implement Turkish REACH in Turkey. Hope I answered.
I mean, it's 9 years, so it's bound to be a lot. Let's move to Diane. What are the next steps if a lead registrant was not appointed for a substance by the December deadline, and has an update on this topic been communicated by the Turkish authorities? So again, a reiteration of the question of a missing lead registrant, but from a different point of view. So has any update been done by the authorities?
We know that ministry is aware of this fact, that still lead registrants are not nominated. Principles and procedures implement this rule that ministry can appoint a lead registrant together with the Chamber of Commodities of Turkey. So what to do as advice, and what Dusan mentioned before, if lead registrant is not appointed now, go for individual temporary registration, because that will ensure that your products are compliant.
Thank you, Agnieszka. I believe a variation of this question might pop up again.
S.r.o, we have also interesting question
Yes.
in our Q&A. The question is, so if a distributor which have a trusted contact with its manufacturer may also be able to appoint the own representative, the short answer is no. Same under the EU REACH, only the duty holders are, of course, Turkey manufacturing company, Turkey importer company, company outside of Turkey can have the role of the substance manufacturer, mixture formulator, or article producer to appoint the own representative. So distributor, according to legal text, cannot appoint the own representative. We have that, let's say, gray area with the toll manufacturing, but this is not something that I would advise. So leave the substance manufacturer or mixture formulator at least to appoint the own representative and submit the registration.
Okay, thank you, Dusan. I'm not sure I got what question you were answering.
From Frank von Broek.
Oh, Frank. Okay. That was the long one in the Q&A. Yes. So thank you for taking the lead on this one. Let's move to Nihal, who asked for confirmation of new registration deadlines, access to LR details, and only representative arrangements for EU-based companies. So I believe the new registration deadlines we have already confirmed.
Yeah.
And the access to registrants or lead registrant details as well. Do you want to maybe touch upon the only representative arrangements?
I would say that only representative contract appointing contract is the document that you have to make with your only representative in Turkey, and this will define obligations and responsibilities of the parties. I mean, legal text of KKDIK or any amendment does not touch this. And choosing the only representative, it's a very important thing to do very thoughtfully. And we spent quite a few time to make sure that we are working with a very reliable partners.
So, thank you. I was looking for the next question, and it is by Petar, who I believe asked in chat as well. So we might bundle the questions together. But first of all, what does the implementation of KKDIK mean for downstream users, such as wholesalers or retailers? And while you two distill the question, I will look for the second one and put it on screen as well. Dusan, might want to take a lead?
Yes, well, this question is basically similar with the question from Tamara. If raw materials are registered in Turkey and the registration covers the tonnages we use, are we obligated to register our final products in Turkey? So basically, this means the same as under the EU REACH. You have to follow, and the substance has to be pre-registered that is registered in your supply chain. So it doesn't matter if the substance is exported and then imported back in Turkey. If in your supply chain it is already registered, substance is registered, and you can use it to formulate your mixture without any concern. I guess this same goes for the wholesalers and the retailers. So you have to make sure that substance in your supply chain is already registered by the substance manufacturer or mixture formulators or the companies outside of Turkey that have appointed the manufacturer importers company and the companies outside of Turkey that appoint the OR.
So I believe Petar's reiteration of the question in chat, which led up to relying on manufacturer's registration as downstream user, covers this as well.
Yes, maybe I can add to this that safety data sheet is the main document where you can get information from your supplier about only representative, about registration, and for retailers, for Turkish companies, they need to request this document from their suppliers.
I believe the follow-up is the final no lead registrant appointed question we have in the list by Andrei, who asked, when will information on lead registrant appointment be available? So do we know?
It's available already for
In
the
KKS?
substances.
I believe this information should already be in the chemical registration system.
Yes, it's there. Once you pre-register substance and you see, like your only representative will give this information, whether the lead registrant is appointed or not. There will not be any public dissemination portal where you can see all the substances, all the lead registrants. It's only for the pre-sieves, let's say like this.
So hopefully we covered the whole base of lead registrant missing and see how you feel about it. If you have any follow-up questions on these appointments, let us know. And we'll move on to Rehan, who asked, how does KKDIK apply to color and additive master batches?
Again, same as under the EU REACH, polymers are not to be registered, but monomer are. Also, the substance in the case of master batch within the polymers, like the additives, the pigments, etc., they also have to be registered, but not the stabilizers.
Thank you, Dusan. Next question is by Alexandra. When will the validity of the pre-registration end?
Depends from your lead.
This is interesting question indeed. Dusan, will you take it?
Yes, well, basically, if you are lucky and for your substance there is a lead who has all the data to submit full registration, in that case, your, let's say, pre-registration will end with a registration deadline. Depending on the tonnage band and the classification, it may be the 2026, 2028, and 2030. But in the case there is no lead or the lead do not want to sell you the letter of access, let's say you have to proceed with the individual temporary registration. So in the terms of the speaker, pre-registration will end.
See, quick question, it depends. Long question, a different webinar. Let's move on to Graham. What's the process if no company submits a temporary registration?
It's well, temporary registration is obligation. Yeah, it's not an option. It's not a possibility. It's obligation to be submitted, and then it's only decision when, either before in March or in September, or if your substance, as Dusan mentioned before, fully registered by lead registrant, then temporary registration, you can omit it. And we know that. Well, our partners in Turkey inform us that the compliance checks and the enforcement inspections and customs, they are aware of this obligation of temporary registration, and they will start to control it like from March to September and after September. So they will start to control it in 2026.
The next question is, thank you, Nessa. I'm sorry. The next question I believe we already covered is by Gemma, but I believe we touched upon it before. Since we are running out of time, I would like to move to others. And next in line is Pallavi, who also asked in chat. So Gemma, if you feel like we didn't cover your question, please let us know. Pallavi, if we do not apply for temporary registration for those substances which we do not have demand now, but in the future, if we want to sell that product, then what will be the steps? I believe we've already answered this with no obligation to follow up on temporary registration.
There is no obligation to follow up with full registration after temporary registration, but in case you will have the need to have your product compliant after the temporary registration is finished, then you can submit pre-registration, the late pre-registration within 30 days. and then to see either you can submit temporary registration or a full registration. Depends on the moment, like on the status of the substance that when you will decide that you need it. Dusan, am I correct?
Yes, and if this will be after the 2030, you will have to go through inquiry and registration, and only then sell your products.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We have approximately 3 minutes left until we are at the scheduled end of the webinar. So as to not move, thank you, Gemma, for the confirmation. As of to not move past the schedule too far, but of course, if something interesting pops up, we can like overlap the deadline a bit. But let's now look at Roberto's question on polymers. If a polymer is exported to Turkey at less than 1,000 tons a year, is not CMR and not H400 or H410, but the monomer of which it is made of are CMR. Do the monomers need to be registered by the first deadline? Or is the polymer classification only that needs to be considered, the only one that needs to be considered?
So you register monomer, and monomer, if not classified, you are register monomer according to its hazard profile and the tonnage band. And in case your polymer became CMR, that means that there are some other additives or other monomers which made this polymer CMR, and then these other constituents you have to register within the relevant deadlines. But if the monomer is not classified as CMR and it's less than 1,000 tons, so you have time till 2029, right?
Okay, let's do a quick lightning round, I believe. Question live from Tomasz. Is there a database of certified experts or a certain way to find and approach one?
I'm not aware that there is public available database.
No, there is no database, but we know a few of them. So contact us, we can guide you. But there is no in that database of the certificate. Also, they are receiving certificates with expiry dates. So like for 2 years, I believe. So they need to reconfirm their certification again. So it's quite a changeable process.
And I believe we are actually now looking at the questions. I believe we have touched upon each of these. Besides Agnieszka, who asked, for the substances that were missing a lead registrant, have the authorities assigned anyone as lead registrant as planned by the end of December 2025? I didn't realize that we actually answered this one, right?
Well, basically, no one can force you to take the lead registrant role. Not even authorities can assign. They can advise, they can suggest, they can try to save you. The ministry and the top, they will try to find the most appropriate lead company, but certainly no one can force you to take the role of the lead registrant if you don't want to take it. So. For the substance that we're missing, have the authorities assigned anyone? If that was the question, authorities cannot assign if you do not agree to be a lead registrant. If that was the question.
Sorry, Jason, I'm not sure I understand the question now.
Yeah, have the authority assigned anyone as lead registrant as planned? Well, there is still a lot of substances that do not have a lead registrant, unfortunately. So authorities, in cooperation with TOB, will try to find most appropriate companies depending of the tonnage band, company size, is the company data owner under the EU reach, but still they cannot force anyone to take the lead role.
And Agnieszka, follow up with the question, if you submitted the registration just before the deadline, which means the registration number isn't available on 1st of April, can you carry on placing the product on the market in the meantime while waiting for the registration number?
No, yes.
Yes, of course.
And with this one, I believe we have covered at least all logged questions. Let me just quickly skim Oh, there's
More questions.
oh, these are actually already. Oh, Thomas asked, could you please repeat what data needs to be submitted with the temporary registration?
Yes. First of all, it's substance identity. So the analytical tests that prove and that the substance composition and identity. Then if you are doing individual temporary registration, you need to submit the classification and labeling. Yeah, this slide here, thank you. Classification and labeling of the substance. You need to give information on the importer in Turkey also, but it's not that obligatory like in Korea. So if you don't know, it's okay, you can like omit it. Then you have to provide, again, if you are going individual way, physical chemical properties and guidance on the safe use. Physical chemical properties should be mentioned in like results of tests. Yeah, so methods should be mentioned that the same way as we used to in Europe, that it's just not the melting point, but how it was defined. So this is it. So it's identification of substance, classification, labeling, information on exposure and uses, and physical chemical properties. And this is in case you are submitting temporary registration individually. If you are doing that after lead registrant, so this which are marked in yellow color, this should be submitted by the lead registrant. Hope I answered.
Thank you, Inechka, and thank you, Dusan, for prompt cooperation. With this, we will be closing off the webinar. Should you have any follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us. The best way to do so, to make sure that the email doesn't jump to spam or anything, is to use the contact form on our website. Please do let us know how we did. I linked the feedback form in chat multiple times. It is very important for us to hear your opinions on how we do or what we talk about and how we talk about it, as well as the format, etc. And as a closing remark, I would like to repeat the invitation to our PCMC conference, which we'll be holding in April in Prague. So thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you for the active discussion, and thank you to Dusan and Inechka for your presentations and active sharing of your expert opinions on the topic.
And thank you, Stanner, for organizing
Thank you,
perfectly as always. And thank you everybody listening to us. Hope it was useful.
Yeah. It's always fun to let you sort of into our space and then to talk out loud a bit. Thank you, Dusan, for connecting.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope I would like to thank you to our audience as well, and hope to see you in Prague in April.
Yeah.
Good luck, everyone.
Good
Goodbye.
luck. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.